Good morning, everybody. Welcome Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service Board meeting for Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. We'll start off with our roll call. It looks like we have everyone in attendance, including our new provincial appointee, Peter Rose. Welcome to Peter. Moving on to number 2 would be the oath of office. That's going to be given to Peter by the board secretary.
Yes, I have to for him to sign. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Is it something he has to go and say, or he just have to?
We just have to sign.
Oh, just have to sign that. Okay. Perfect. Okay. We will move on then to number 3, approval of the agenda. We have a mover and a seconder for the agenda as written. Moved by member Hahn, seconded by member Grantham. All in favor? Perfect. Carried. Okay, moving on to that. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Is there any? Seeing none. Moving on. The reading, correction, and approval of minutes. General meeting minutes of September 16th, 2025. Do we have a mover and a seconder to approve those? Moved by member Grantham, seconded by member Rowe. All in favor? Carried. Perfect. On to number 6, presentation by Dave Preston, who's been tasked to create some board policies for the Police Service Board. So I will kick it over to Mr. Preston. Thank you. Welcome.
I suppose you want me to use this. Okay, I'll just start off by a background of who I am, and my name is Dave Preston. I currently live in Lions Head, just south of Tobermory, and my background is policing. I started my career with Toronto. Then I moved up to a little place called Port Elgin, which eventually became Southampton Port Elgin Police, which was the first in the province. And then eventually became Saugeen Shores Police, and I retired there as a chief. 4 days after my retirement, I started a role with back in those days, the Ministry of Community Safety and Corrections, and as a police services advisor, and I held that role for 10 years. Once leaving the ministry, a couple of smaller services up in Grey Bruce, Hanover, and West Grey approached me for some assistance in developing policies for the board. Well, it started off as a branch or as a joint project, which went very well. That led to Owen Sound wanting on board, which led to Saugeen Shores wanting on board. And then Strathroy-Caradoc was our 5th service that joined up in Stratford, and I won't go through them all, but we're currently up to 12, which is my limit, 12 police services, and I'm actually up to 14 police services boards that I provide support for. I had a list of things with regards to the CSPA and the changes for the board. I'm not going to go through them all because I think you're well aware of what has happened in the last year. Probably the biggest thing that the board has to understand, and I'm sure your advisor that's here today will support that, but there is a greater responsibility for board governance now, and if you look at the new legislation and when you review your new policies, you're going to see exactly what I'm talking about. The process that I went through with your existing board policies is I basically reviewed everything. I went through all your policies and I reviewed for policy compliance prior to April 1st, 24. So basically looking to make sure that you had everything that you should have had prior to April 1st, 24. So that goes back to both the guidelines and the old Police Services Act. And then the second stage was once I went through that process is then to do the second review and start doing revisions to address the CSPA and the regulations and any revisions that had to be made. To start off for your board, there was actually 12, there are now 12 brand new policies created that were required by the Act and by the regs that have come out. What I'm recommending to the board today, that policies that I'm leaving with you, or will be leaving with you, will be received as information, and then after your review, we'll finalize them, and then that's when you'll pass them. So probably the biggest thing to explain or to make sure we're online is, number one, that I have a contact person as we go through this process. And the reason why is what my other boards are doing, and what I really request this board to do is you make, once you start to review the policies, whether you do it as a policy committee, however the board decides they want to do it, or as the board as a whole, there's over 100 new policies, or I should say new, but there's over 100 policies that you're going to have a look at here. So it's whatever works at your level. And as I mentioned, I really do need a point or contact person, because once we start exchanging our communication on what you need to change and that type of thing, it's much easier just to deal with that one person. One of the things that you'll notice, and we don't have to look just yet, but in all your policies, your existing policies or the new ones that I've created, I do a color code thing, so anything that's in blue is regulatory, you can't change it. Anything that's in yellow is something new and I'm recommending you adopt it, or maybe it's something that I needed clarification on it, but once you see it, it'll jump out at you. As I mentioned, I will be leaving a USB. It has everything on it. Once the board review is completed and we've made the changes that are required, I will provide another USB. Everything will be updated as recommended by the board, and at that stage I'll actually provide PDF copies as well, so that you can go through the publishing process. That final version will contain a Word master and a PDF version. Part of the practice that I'm giving to the boards is, once you're done, I continue to provide support for a year, because things keep changing. So you're at a point where a lot of the changes, I'll use Gananoque, were done about 8 months ago. I've made almost 12 changes to their policies since that, where we've had to update things and change things, that type of thing. So between the police service and myself and anything that you come across, like, I keep wanting to call them all chiefs, but I think they're called advisories now, or bulletins, or when they come through, I get them as well. And so whoever my contact person, they'll get those updates automatically. So I think this is probably a good time to show the USB. So if you go to the very top, that first folder is now called Policing Functions. We used to call it the Ministry Recommended Policies, but if you look at the Act, it talks police functions all the way through, so that's kind of what we've done. And if you look at the next group of folders that are in there, that will be familiar to you. So the boards that I'm working with and the police services that I'm working with, we've maintained those titles: administration, crime prevention, emergencies, response, law enforcement, etc., etc. And that folder system mirrors your police service. So if you just open the first one so we can give you an idea what they look like. And if you can open one. So those are all your AIs that you had, and they've all been revised now. So if you click and show one, open one up. So again, that mirrors the police services procedures. So when you look at AI 001, I think that is, strategic plan, that's the same number that the police service has. So it's easy to reference. So you see the blue, and so that's your strategic plan. So you see there are a lot of changes, regulatory changes there. So that's kind of what your template's going to look like, how it's laid out. One thing I wasn't sure, I put at the bottom, date and chair. I'm not sure if that's how you do it here. If some boards like to have the secretary sign off on it, but it's however you want to do it. We can certainly change that. Okay, thank you. If you can click out of that one. And keep going back, yeah. And then, so, and the rest are the same as what you have now, so I won't go through all them, but it's the same layout, everything's in there. If you click back one more, please. Okay, so I put in counterterrorism there as a folder, and the advisor may agree with me here, but in my day as an advisor, those are confidential and they should not be published. You gotta have them, but you don't publish them. And then if you go to general policies, so these are all brand new for your board. You may have had some of them, or you may have them and I didn't get them in the USB. So basically what I've done is I've gone through and virtually given you what all my other boards have. So the only thing you don't have in the general policies is a governance policy. I really recommend you have that. I do governance policies. I have some good examples that we could convert for you. That's a separate project on its own, but the board needs to talk about that. If you don't have one, reach out and I will do one for you. I think I'm charging like $400 or something like that to do a governance policy, but you really need to have that. So these are all new ones. So these are almost 75% of them are all new as a result of the regulatory requirements. There's some in there that I felt you should have, and I've included them. And again, should the board decide that they don't want what I have in there, these are the ones you really need to spend some time on and have a look at. The other ones, you had most of that already. It's just the updates or the revisions that I made. So that's the majority of the work right there. Okay, I don't know if you want to look at one, you pick one if you want. I mean, the template's going to be the same. So, which one is that? I can't.
Relationships in the work.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so that's the conflict of interest, and that's the one that you need to have, or you needed to have. The boards, your police service has it. So we just changed the name because the police service already had one similar in place. We just updated theirs to be compliant, and then now the board will be compliant as well. So, anyways. So if the advisor's wondering whether or not the board has that, they have it. Okay, great, thank you. Go back. Okay, what's the next one? Is the PDF folder. There's nothing in there. I put a bylaw folder. I'm not sure if you had bylaws or not. I don't do bylaws. There is a folder there if you want to keep track of them. And go down to the archive folder. Okay, great. And if you go up to the very first one, doesn't matter which one you open. So, one of the things that I've created, and your police service was the first to receive this, but it's an archiving system. So, in all these folders, there's an identical folder containing all your policies. So, when you make a change, if you click on whichever one you want, and whatever one you want, and then click on that one more time. So when you make a change to any of your policy, it's so important to keep track of what changes are being made. So in my days as an advisor, that was one of the problems that we would come into services and everything was up to date, but things weren't in order, and it was sometimes we would actually get the wrong policy or the procedure because it wasn't set up properly. So here you can make the changes on your main folder. You come in here, you put the date the change was made, whatever it was, and you copy that original and you paste it right into that folder. So there's a folder in all of that is that will match all your policies to do that with. So it just provides a more uniform way of tracking. I'm personally using that now for all my police services that I'm involved with. Yeah, you can go back out a little further, and then just take one of the list. It shows lists. So what I've done is I've provided a list of all your general policies, all the policing functions. So for some reason you wanted to print something out, I'm not sure you would, but if you do, there's a list there already for you for all of there. So one general policy, the policing functions, and so on and so forth. And then if you go down to the tracking document, I think is what I call it, review, probably the, yeah, okay. So this is, I keep changing names on it, that's why I couldn't remember what I called yours, but this is a tracking document that lists all your policies and what your old one number was and what the new number was, although they're probably the same. But it shows everything that I've done. So when you start the review process, and if you're not quite sure what I've done or why I did it, you can go back to this sheet and it outlines, it gives you a high-level review of what I actually did to that policy. You see all the blue, that's saying, again, regulatory changes. So it does come in handy during the review process, so that I provided for you as well. I'm not sure if there's anything else on there that any of the board members would want to see.
Okay, go ahead.
You had talked about a board governance policy, and I wondered what items would be in a board governance policy
So,
versus, and I know there's a line between our responsibilities and obviously the police services board.
so the board governance policy is going to be everything that tells you how you run your board meeting, what the roles of board members are, the chair, vice chair, how you run your meetings. It's got, it's the one course I'm giving out now has all the updated references to the CSPA and the regulations. It talks about in-camera meetings. So it pretty well sets everything that the board should be doing. The OSPSB or whatever they're called now, they used to have a little manual, but I'm not sure if that's available anymore or whether it's up to date. But basically the governance is how you're running everything. So versus in your policies, it's going to direct the chief to do certain things, and the majority of the case it's going to say that, you know, the board would like the chief to do X, Y, and Z. You just can't tell them how to do it. However, in the new legislation, if you look at some of those new policies, in my opinion, it does cross over into operational, but that's the new world we're in. But at the end of the day, it's still the chief's call. And probably the best one was the critical points reporting one. That it's in there. That when it first came out, the police service reviewed it as well. So it's kind of a governance is built right into all your policies, as well as the governance policy is more how the board is going to function and carry out their duties and so on and so forth.
So for instance, mandatory reports that are required to be brought to a monthly meeting, would that be in? That's
scattered through almost all your policies.
Okay.
Where it says, you know, the board will report annually, quarterly, or it may be an agenda item that comes forward each time, but there may not be nothing to report. So the other thing that I'm working on, and I'm almost done, I'm not sure if I sent you the draft, probably not. I do have a document that I'm working on called reporting requirements, and it's a little different than what the ministry used to give out, but it basically lists all the responsibilities of the police service, including the board, of when things have to be published, when the board, or when the chief has to report. So there's going to be another document coming, but most of that's already covered in all your policies. It's just when you got 100 policies and trying to remember which one's which, hopefully when I get this document, it's in the second version, I think, when that's completed or near completion, you'll be getting that as well as the police service. So it'll be a quick reference. It's about 18 pages now, so, but you'll be able to go through and say, okay, and I've got it set up so that it starts with regulatory, and then it filters down into policy and board or procedure requirements, because the chief's procedures have the same thing built into theirs, where it says the board will be advised, or chief will report to the board. It's just however you decide that reporting method is going to be.
All the associations you are working with, are they all asking you to prepare the governance policy also?
So what happened was with the governance is Owen Sound City Board, they took the lead on the governance thing, so they had one. It was actually a bylaw. We converted it into a policy, and then mainly because we had to address the CSPA and the new regulations. So when we went through that process, we updated it, brought it up to date, and so on and so forth. So that's basically been my template, and I think probably about half. So Stratford, I've done one for them, Elmer, trying to think who else in this area. I've done quite a few of them anyways, yeah. So and again, it's something you would, no, Stratford's still going through theirs, that's right. Yeah, so we've added some stuff to Stratford's.
Could you advise the board when the timeline is that it was mandated that we incorporate those new 12 policies?
And the advisor can correct me if I'm wrong, but the one for sure was the conflict of interest. That was April 1st of 2024, which we didn't know till, at least I didn't know until 3 days. That was Easter weekend, and I think it was Owen Sound picked up on it, and these guys got it at the last minute, and so all the police services got it, but I actually wasn't doing boards at that stage. Well, I was some, but so that one might be one you might have to look at and put into place. The main thing is your police service that has it and it's in place. That's the main thing, because their policy is basically saying, telling the chief to have that and what you want addressed in his procedure. And that's one of the one that kind of crosses over a little bit into operational. So
Thank you.
that's a good question. So, actually, that brings me to the any more questions?
Anybody else have any questions for Dave?
Or concerns or?
Okay. Oh, yep, Minika.
How long would this take the board to review?
Okay, so depends. It really depends on how eager you are. The cell, their board, they put a committee together and they had theirs done within 3 months. And then we had to go back and change some things before we published. They published. It really depends. I'm on average. If you have a committee, you can get things done a little quicker. Belleville, they have a committee, so I've been getting stuff. We're about halfway through, and that's been in 3 weeks. So through their stuff, but I don't want to kid you. There's a lot of work there, but at the same time, you tell me what you want. I'll tell you if you can do it, and if you can, then I'll make the changes. Then your final product will reflect all those changes. So it's just basically letting me know what you need changed. And I really like to do it that way, and I'm glad you brought that up. The reason that if I continue to support you for a year, if you make any changes and I'm not aware of it, then we'll be working on 2 different copies. So when I work with the deputy, I send any changes to him, he reviews it first, makes any changes that he wants, it comes back to me, I finalize it, and then I send him back his final Word PDF and his members PDF as well. That way we know, because it's fallen off the rail on a couple of my police services where they're not keeping me in. And anything newly developed without me, I'm made aware of it as well. So.
Perfect, thank you. Member Grant, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. More of a technical question is more just my church and state thing so my question is more to the chair and the secretary. Dave's point of contact to the board is directly to the board, or is it through the police service? Just, it's more of a functionality question. Is I understand he has a role with the service, but the police board, has there been interaction, and will there be with the secretary? Because I'm also looking at one of the items on the agenda is the secretary's role, so it's more of a function question. So who is the point of contact to Dave from the board?
Dave, who do you normally have for your points of contact? Is it board members or staff members?
It's 99% of staff members.
Staff members.
So is it, I might not just ask directly, is it like the board secretary, staff, or
Yeah.
police? Okay.
Well, it's been both, like with,
Okay.
well, no, I guess LaSalle, she has dual roles, which I'm sure the same here, but she would take stuff back. If there was a question about non-regulatory, and I would recommend that she would reach out back to the board and see whether or not that they want to go ahead. I don't think you're going to find anything like that in yours. It's those new ones that you really need to have a look at and have a better understanding. Because I've had some boards that when they've looked at the new ones, they think there's too much operation, but I can guarantee you that everything that I have in those new ones is almost verbatim from the CSPA or the regulatory, only because we don't have guidelines like we had back in the original days when adequacy first came out. We're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants here on a lot of it, and luckily with the Q&A group that I'm part of, the Quality Assurance People of Ontario, we're sharing this information all the time. So like we've got like Peel, York, I work a lot with Ottawa, Sarnia, I work a lot with Sarnia as well. So.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Do we have any comments from board members on how we would like to proceed, whether by committee to review the policies or, oh, we have a comment from the Deputy Chief.
If I can just make a suggestion, having gone through it on the police service side, probably best to have a committee. Don't get me wrong, his work is amazing, but it's a lot of work in the background.
Yeah.
So I would recommend a committee unless somebody has a lot of time on their hands. But that's just my.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because if the committee or whoever's leading the committee, they can get back to me and we have that discussion. At the committee level, they may make the decision. It doesn't need to go back to the board, because quite often it's more of an explanation versus it is a decision-making process. But I assure you, if it's a decision-making, I would be telling the board or the committee to go back to the board. So, or of course you got your advisor as well, that if you're looking for another opinion, because things are changing all the time. So, one thing I wanted to mention too, I've jumped out ahead a little bit when we were talking about this when it first came in with Section 14 agreements. You're going to see that I've already put those in your board policies. So I put section, so for tactical support, I've got in there that the board will assure that Section 14 agreement is placed to provide that, blah, blah, blah. But then I've continued on to say currently that service is being provided by the OPP under the Police Services, the former Police Services Act framework of agreement. So that's all in there now. Unfortunately, at some point, when we get that settled, that'll have to come out. But at least you've got it covered both ways. So I'm slowly doing that with the police services as well. So, sorry.
Chief Chief Campbell?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I wanted to sort of just kind of also create a bit of a summary for the work that Dave has done for the service and for the board. Obviously, he's helped articulate some of his history, both as a chief operationalizing the former Police Services Act, but also his role as a zone advisor. So sort of wearing both hats and certainly having a clear understanding. And certainly for us as an organization, understanding that he is working with upwards to about a dozen other services.
Well, we're 12 police services now, and I've turned, there's one in the queue that I won't take on until someone's done, and 14 boards.
Yeah. So I want to highlight that point because of the cost effectiveness for us as an organization and you as a board to be able to share in this cooperative approach about updating board policies, service policies, procedures in a most cost-effective manner. Just to sort of comment on the idea of maybe how to proceed forward from a board perspective, I do agree with the deputy's comment about a committee structure. There is a OAPSB, OACP meeting next Monday in London, the zone meeting. I certainly would encourage if anyone from the board is attending during the OAPSB business meeting portion to maybe put your hand up and raise that question if anyone at the zone level, and again, I think you've heard it highlighted that LaSalle is currently undergoing this process to sort of see how that is structured and how it is working to maybe emulate that here locally, I think is probably a good idea. So again, I wanted to make sure that Dave got the recognition and the attention for the work that he has done. Because again, I can tell you, in about a 6 or 7 year period where we were trying to grasp and rewrite even our operational policies and procedures, being corner of your desk and the intertwining of policies and procedures that as you go to rewrite one, all of a sudden you realize there's 10 other procedures that it touches on that you also need to sort of spend time rewriting. So I appreciate the work and the effort that Dave has done, again, in bringing us into compliance. And as you'll see, obviously the new legislation, the CSPA, and the emphasis on the important work that boards do from a governance perspective, you'll see is reflected in the updated policies and procedures and the emphasis on boards to be engaged, and that is certainly covered in that thing. So again, thanks Dave for coming and doing that work, but also coming in person to make that presentation to the board.
Perfect, Chief. Yeah, I'll second the thanks to Dave. That seems like a lot of work. I don't have your position at all, but thank you very much for going through that. Yeah, I think a committee would be a good idea. I'll leave it up if anybody else from the board has any comments on that, or if anybody would like to step forward and make a motion to create said committee. If not, we can chew on it for a bit and then revisit it at a later meeting.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. I have some background in policy and governance, and I agree it's a huge job. And I think a committee is not only a good idea, I think it's essential to get this work done. It's going to be a big job.
Yep, agreed. Thank you. Member Grantham, did you have any?
I was going to bring the motion, Chair. Bring
Sure.
the motion to create a committee to look at the policies and procedures.
Perfect. Do you have a seconder for that motion? Member Rowe, all in favor? Perfect. We need to form a committee now. We can decide on members.
You can decide after.
Yeah, okay. We can correspond back and forth after about who will be on the committee. Perfect. Okay. Moving on, number 7, communications. Recommendation be set item 7.11, 7.12 be received for information from the Inspector of Policing. There's an advisory bulletin and a general memo. Do we have any comments or questions on those before we vote them in for information? No, perfect. Do we have a mover and a seconder for that? Moved by Member Grantham, seconded by Member Khan. All in favor? Accept those. Carried. On number 8, monthly police service reports. I will move it over to the chief for his words, and then we will vote them in.
Thank you, Chair. So the monthly reports are presented there to the board members. A couple quick highlights I'm just going to capture, and then I'll certainly make room for questions, comments by the board members. You'll see on the activity reports, our total occurrence numbers are certainly trending down from where we were over the previous 3-year period in all the different areas, both our Zone 1, Zone 2, and our record checks. Just for the courtesy of our newest board member, we haven't really had an orientation or an onboarding opportunity, but certainly in this context, just to explain, Zone 1 from a reporting area is Strathroy-Caradoc. Zone 2 captures the remaining areas, so Caradoc Township, the village of Melbourne, Campbellvale, and such. But again, we can certainly make time to have a bit more of an orientation onboarding discussion to sort of make you more aware of some of the reporting areas.
Yeah, thanks, Chief. I have taken the opportunity to go online and look at some of the structural regional coverage in Zone 1, Zone 2, so thank you. I appreciate that offer.
Just in the charge summary, again, trending down in our numbers. Provincial statutes are quite noticeably down from where we were or have been in previous years. One area that has impacted that is we had one of our traffic members retire. He's been gone almost 2 months. He was a pretty high performer in that area. And we have recently just filled those 2 traffic positions with 2 new members, and we are certainly looking to see a swing back in the other direction in regards to an upbeat in traffic enforcement. We've also had some communications with our uniform members, sharing some of our operational desires to see more impacts from our uniform division. Just moving over to the criminal investigation division, I've highlighted bullet point number 3. The event we had back in June regarding the homicide investigation. Again, just to put some context to that, as that case proceeds through the various, or the court process, we certainly have lots of work tasks that are being assigned to our members in regards to the collection of evidence, most notably digital evidence. There was certainly a high volume of digital evidence that is part of that investigative case. In regards to the intimate partner violence, this was a request at a previous board meeting to sort of flush out a little more detail in intimate partner violence occurrences. And so we've come up with the summary that you see there, where we've really highlighted the incidents that are involving both male, female, and the charge patterns that go with that. And again, and I just want to remind the board, when you see intimate partner violence occurrence numbers, I'm going to describe it as, I don't want it to be misleading, in that an intimate partner violence incident could be something that is minor in nature, involving 2 people who meet the definition of being in an intimate partner relationship. And the example I'll use is it could be something like a custody dispute. So no allegations of physical or emotional abuse, just the challenge of exchanging children as part of a separation piece. On the other side, there are those occurrences where we are being called because of either physical or emotional sort of related activities where officers are going to take more of an investigative stance and position and activity. So I always want to remind the board that when you see incident numbers as high as you see, it's a bit of a wide scale of occurrence types that fit into the definition of an intimate partner violence incident. I also wanted to highlight just some things in the court clerk report. The first thing I need to correct is we're still sort of going through the transition, and I see Jason Cartwright has identified himself as sergeant. He's actually now a staff sergeant. But the things I really wanted to sort of highlight was the amount of activities regarding the body-worn camera redactions and the crown brief redactions. High volume amount of work. Again, a lot of our activities are centered around the digital evidence pieces that we are collecting, whether through our body-worn cameras on our cruisers, or the cameras situated throughout the building, and or cameras that's situated throughout our community that we might be collecting from witnesses, complainants, or the accused themselves. A lot of work is going into that. I also want to highlight the fact that we've embarked on our Crown consultation program. At a future board meeting, I'd like to bring in Staff Sergeant Cartwright to provide an update to the board as to what that program actually details. As a real high summary, we are the third police service in the province of Ontario to embark on this program. Guelph initiated this program, and then St. Thomas and ourselves, who are working in collaboration, are the second and third services to share a resource. This is an embedded Crown working out of our building that is a resource to our members so that they can have a Crown consultation prior to proceeding with laying of an information. There's really two sort of pillars to this. One is we see it as the ability to enhance our investigative and our Crown brief package building in providing the best criminal packages or provincial packages available to us before we proceed with a case before the courts. The second piece, and just as an important piece of this program, is the ability to maybe deflect or take cases away from proceeding through the court processes that, through the Crown's eyes, don't have a reasonable prospect of conviction or aren't seen as in the interest of the public to proceed with such cases. Those do come up. Those cases currently sit on court dockets and eat into valuable court time. So we see this as an opportunity to off-ramp some of those cases and removing them from the court dockets. The other piece to that is it then will also free up our staff, both uniform and civilian members, from having to process and go through, as I pointed out, some of the redaction pieces, because those cases won't be proceeding through the court process. So we see it as a real sort of shining star example of a really great initiative, and an initiative that I think you'll see over the next 3-6 months to a year. You'll see a lot of other services embarking in this along this pathway to this program to implement it into their services. And then I want to highlight the great work that Constable Catherine Lockwood, our community services and media relations member, is doing. You'll see if you're a follower of our social media platforms just how active she has been in sharing stories both about community events, media updates, and in some cases offering a bit of a lighthearted sort of approach to sometimes a very serious sort of occupation and profession. So I'll stop there and then certainly take some questions or comments from the board members.
Thank you, Chief. I have one question just about the court reports. Just looking at the numbers here, May, June, I noticed you have zeros for the camera redactions and the Crown brief redactions. Is that just an anomaly, or?
No, it had to do with, I think it was and I think we had a member off, and there was a pause on just performing that function.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Any other questions for the Chief on those? Member Grantham, go ahead.
Yeah, no, Chief, and I think the Deputy Chief also, thank you for the report on intimate partner violence. I requested that, so for me, it's just a way to gauge, and I think where it might be helpful is lead to questions as to what's going on. Because step back in time, September of 2024, there was a big spike, which I think would lead the board to ask the question, just what's happening, right, Chief? That's what this is for, just to track it, so it's appreciated. Also, second, just follow up, you had mentioned about Constable Lockwood, And I did notice that there's been a fair amount of interaction with the First Nations in the last little bit. I don't know, Chief, if I've noticed, and I don't know if others have, was that a conscious effort on both our parts and those, but I know they came to the market a couple times, and I believe that we went to Oneida one day, so I just, if you comment on that, because to me, that's great outreach, Chief.
Yep, so through the chair to Member Grantham, very much a specific action on our part. Again, baked into the strategic plan and those, strengthening community relationships. And this is an area where we have sometimes been slow to sort of ensuring that those relationships are strong. But again, once you make it a priority and extend the hand and make it an effort on your part, it's been a really great journey so far, and I see it as only getting stronger. Both attending, as you mentioned, attending events in their community and having them come and participate in activities here. I think it's only going to add to just a stronger working relationship, information sharing, and understanding of just the differences in our communities.
Chief, and I apologize, I just want to point out to the board, I have touchstones within the First Nations community, and that's, can't let the board say enough how important that is. Right, we talk about truth and reconciliation and reaching out to the First Nations, so that is tremendous outreach, Chair.
Absolutely, yep, love it, thank you. Any other questions for the chief? Okay, so we need a mover and a second to receive those reports for information. We have moved by Member Brennan, seconded by Member Grantham, all in favor? Perfect. Okay, moving on, number 9, staff reports. Go through one at a time. Is there any questions about the 2025 October staffing update, or did the chief have any comments he wanted to make, or we can just receive that for information?
Thank you, Chair. I'll maybe defer to the first 3 reports, if there's any comments or questions to the deputy, as he offered all 3 of those.
Perfect. Okay, we can start off the first one to receive information, the 2025 October staffing update. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Member Grantham, second by Member Brennan. All in favor? Okay. Then 9.2, recommendations that the board appoint Constable Breanne Baker and Constable Kyle Dilks under section 83.4 of the CSPA. We have a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Member Rowe, seconded by Member Brennan. All in favor? Perfect. Then, yeah, we'll add that the board welcomes Constable Breanne Baker and Constable Kyle Dilks to the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service. We look forward to seeing them out and about. 9.3, recommendations that the board direct the noted property, being a set of bolt cutters, be transferred into possession of the Strathroy-Caradoc Police Service, as it was seized property. We have a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Member Brennan, seconded by Member Hahn. All in favor? Perfect. That was carried as well. And then,
Sorry, Chair, if I may.
Yeah.
I just, in regards to the 9.1 and 9.2, I know that we have traditionally hosted badge presentation events. We are looking to bring a number of those new members in for either the November or December meeting. We have one recruit currently at the college. I believe that finishes 18th of December, which may not allow time to get that member to the board meeting, but we do have 5 or 6 that we would like to, and I think they're great events to host at meetings. Family and friends are able to obviously come in, and it's just a great reception into the organization.
absolutely, yeah, it's always nice to do a meet and greet with the new people, so yeah, whenever we can get them all together would be excellent. Where am I? Oh yes, 9.4, Police Services Board Secretary discussion. Then we want to touch on that just to update the board on where we were. Who's leading that discussion? Can I get Doug?
Certainly, yeah. I didn't realize this was a hot potato table, but apparently it is. In my being absent at the previous meeting, I know that this was an assignment that was sent to my inbox. So obviously, a lot of consultation with Director Pereira regarding the current role that is undertaken by the board secretary. So that's sort of the nexus behind the information that is in this report. I've provided a couple of the recommendations that really are collaborative recommendations for the board to consider. I do want to highlight that there is funding in the existing operating budget in previous years has been earmarked or noted for strategic planning expenses. But that dollar or value amount is reasonable or close to, I think, the compensation that would be seen as that internal transfer to provide that financial support. And I know that we have done that already for both IT and some HR type resources. Again, just to be reflective in showing the true cost of having a municipal police service and those activities that are intertwined or tethered to town hall, but I obviously identify the financial compensation pieces. So I'll maybe stop there, and if there's any questions or comments from the board members, I think both myself and or Director Pereira or Director Payne will certainly be able to, I'm sure, provide an answer.
All right, thank you, Chief. Do you have any questions for either person? Member Grantham?
Again, mine is more of a form and function question. I actually wonder if there's not a recommendation 3. I do understand that Director Pereira doesn't have time to put this on her workload. So my questions are, the board secretary reports to the board, correctly? That's what I believe, right? So I believe the secretary reports to the board, and under recommendation 2, it really looks like they're reporting to the clerk, right? Again, it's my church and state thing where I always try to separate the role of the board from the municipal functions. So I wonder if there really isn't a recommendation 3 is to appoint somebody from the clerk's office, one person to be the board secretary. It's just my thing about separating the board and the sanctity of the board from the municipal functions.
Okay, Member Hahn?
I would support exactly what the mayor was saying. I had that sense too. I think for the board, I really look at consistency in reporting and having a point person, just be the point person for the board. And I appreciate the role that's currently done by the board secretary is massive. And it was indicated like 25% of her time is taken. And now we have this responsibility of maybe reviewing all of the board policies. And I think it would be good to have a number 3, as you had brought forward, that focuses just and is our key point person. That's what I would like to recommend too.
The way I'm reading this recommendation too, it does mention that a staff member, being the clerk or another staff member, would hold the primary role of board secretary. So to me that reads that it does assign somebody as the point person, but then they are able to delegate work to other staff members. Is that?
I'll maybe take first swing at this. I wanted to make sure we get a Blue Jay analogy into this meeting. So, and I agree that maybe the wording could be a little bit more clear. The recommendation 2 is really identifying that the person comes from the clerk's office. It's not that she reports to Director Pereira, who then reports back to the board. It's meant that that's really the pool from where that person originates from, and that she is reporting and working for the board and that primary contact person. That's the intent of what recommendation number 2 is. It's not that the person reports to Director Pereira and then to the board.
Does that answer your concerns? Sorry, Ron.
Not to let's upset the apple cart here, but as a potential fourth, and it's not uncommon for a board to have a contracted employee to fulfill the role as an option.
Yep. Thank you. Do we have anybody else that had? Member Brennan.
I'm just wondering how within the department that would work, because you'd have the director, and then you'd have an individual within that department who's been basically designated to be board secretary. And the two of those individuals, I guess, would have to coordinate with each other as to how the work would be distributed throughout that department. And so you have two people both having to coordinate how the work for the board would be spread throughout the department while still taking care of municipal business. I'm just wondering, is that going to be an elegant solution, or is it going to be messy? Just wondering how that works, maybe through the chair to the director.
So I guess in my head, for example, for instance, I would still be appointed as board secretary. I would be the first point of contact to the board. But things like agenda prepping, minute taking, conference booking, all of those additional things, I do have additional staff. For instance, our admin assistant takes care of all of council accommodations. So that was the idea, is that some of those other things could be the responsibility of the team.
Member Grant.
Yeah, and I think I'm speaking solely with my police board member's hat on. You know, as a police board member, I think it behooves us to have our own independent person to conduct the business of the board. So I agree with Ron, there is an option 4 that I think we should investigate the cost of it. Our police board is growing rapidly. The demands on everyone is growing rapidly. The reporting that we've just seen is growing rapidly. So I think strictly from a police board member, I would make a motion to look at a recommendation number 4 or 3, which is a contract person, just so we can understand what that cost is, right, as a police board.
We have a seconder for that motion to look at an outside contracted position. No? Okay, that motion, that's right.
I think it warrants a review, so I will second it.
Okay, yeah, this is just a review to look at. This is voting to move
Yes.
ahead, just to look at.
And then just for discussion purposes, then there will be financial implications, whereas currently the 1-2, it says no additional funding financial implications. But option number 3, I imagine, would have additional financial implications.
Correct. That would be something that would be discovered during
Yeah.
the research into that position. So we have a mover and a seconder for that option 3 to look into a contract position. All in favor of moving ahead with that?
Sure.
Perfect. Carried. There is still 2 other recommendations that received the report for information, and the board approved to rename the position to board administrative assistant. We have a mover and a seconder for those. Yep, Member Brennan.
Can I have a question? Is that something that, is the term board secretary, is that something that we're allowed to change, or are there regulations that would, okay, just as long as we're making sure that we're not stepping on toes here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because we've got all the new regulations and policies, I just want to make sure this is allowed.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So since you can't really record me shaking my head, no, board secretary, there's also, throughout the province, we have a chief governance officer, and there's also executive director. So it depends on the nature and scope of the role. I would suggest organizations the size of this board, you're looking more at an administrative assistant or secretary. Yep.
So if we wanted to, we are able to to rename if we want. Okay. Perfect. So, yeah, receive the report and then, recommendation to rename the position of board administrative assistant. We have a mover and a seconder for that.
I know, just a question.
Yep.
Is that though, the naming change tied to recommendation two? Like when I read that, right, that's part of recommendation two, which is to,
That will be, whoever takes on that new position, whatever option we end up going forward with, that position will be for board administrative assistant, is what I'm reading that as. Okay. Orhan?
Could we delay that name change until we've determined the recommendation we're going to pursue?
Yep, sure, I'm okay with that. We can hold off on those two, and then we'll just receive the report for information if we want, just the first one, yeah. We have a mover and a seconder then just to receive the report. Moved by member Grantham, second by member Hahn. All in favor? Perfect. Okay. On to 9.5, 2026 budget discussions. We will move it over to the chief for that.
Thank you, Chair. So seated to my right, probably for most of you to your left, is Director Dakin from the Finance Department. I've asked him to be here to assist with some of the discussions. So I'm going to start just by highlighting the fact that.
Number Hahn?
I'm not seeing that in my agenda, so where is that?
That was right after the police service board secretary, and then right before announcements and inquiries by members. It's 9.5 is the item number.
Yeah, sorry, I don't have that item number. Was there attachments?
I don't believe there was it's a verbal update.
No attachment.
Okay. Yeah, I think I might have had one prior to that change. Okay.
Yeah, so just to update the board, so the current collective agreement expires at the end of 2025. The association and the board have commenced those discussions. They met for the first time last Friday. So in regards to the budget for 2026, we are wanting to provide a budget summary of what we are anticipating the 2026 operating and capital budgets to look like. So I'll maybe start with providing an overview of what we anticipate the budget revenue to look like, valued at $10,696,935, which is an increase of about 15.89% in revenue. The taxation portion of that is 8.27%. The remaining of that increased funding either sits in secondment revenue. For officers, we have 4 officers that are seconded to the Ontario Police College that we get full cost recovery, salaries and benefits from. And the second piece is NG 911 funding that we have made application for. On our expense side, we are again looking at an overall expenses of $10,696,935. Some of the areas where we are anticipating some of those increases is as we internalize our IT services, we are moving or operationalizing our Axon expenses, which traditionally have showed up in the capital area. Again, that's a recommendation in discussions with the director that we show that as a true operational cost. And then, of course, both uniform and civilian expense areas, we're anticipating some increases. On the capital, we're seeing, for at least the budget year of 2026, an increase of almost 49% of where we have been traditionally, but over 900,000 of that will be NG 911 capital expenses. So it's a 1-year piece. If you were to take that 907,000 capital expense out, our actual capital costs actually are less than what we traditionally have been, which is, it normally sits around $740,000, $750,000. So that's kind of the sort of a high-level budget summary piece. The second portion of the budget update here is an update on the building annex piece. So we are, obviously there is a budget meeting scheduled for next Monday, October 27th, in this room. And so coming out of this meeting, I'm optimistic to see, or hoping that the board will have a conversation and deliberate both our operating and our capital budgets, as well as a discussion and a deliberation on the building annex discussion. The work that A-Link, the consultant who has been working on the building annex with primarily the deputy, they have provided us with an updated Class C costing, which is sort of a very rough estimate. They're also in the process of putting together a Class A costing, which is a very detailed look at what that building will cost, so that when approved for moving ahead, would be ready to be moved out to a tender process. And we are anticipating receiving the Class A either for the November or at the latest the December board meeting. Some of the things that I want to sort of highlight to the board, specific to the building annex piece, is the current financial lending leverage that I think that the municipality has with a very low borrowing rate, currently lower than I think what existing debt interest is currently sitting in for those existing projects that are currently on the books. The demand supply related issues, and this is where I'm going to put on my political hat and talk about the impacts of global economics, specifically tariffs that are impacting some of the building supplies and trades. I also want to highlight the fact that through various sources I've heard that currently the existing climate for undertaking building projects is favorable from a regional lens, in that there are some major, and I will say major projects that are being considered and will likely start on a regional basis in the next year to a year and a half, that I think are going to have a tremendous impact on availability and cost in getting trades and construction people to a specific job in our community, because of the push-pull on those demands for other regional projects. In addition, we still see ongoing pressures and demands within our current structure of our facility. We've had to sort of move some support staff to an open space, almost a hallway. As I mentioned, we have a Crown consultation person coming in who we are sharing a space with our interview room and our work area. We are also responsible for virtual court, finding a space for that area. IT staff who are basically jumping around from room to room in the building, wherever there is an open spot to find a workspace. And our parking concerns are also still paramount. Any given day, if you drive by the office or into the parking lot, our neighbors to the south at the YMCA have been very gracious about allowing staff parking in the front half of their building. So those are just some of the sort of overviews of the building annex piece that are built into this piece. I will invite Director Dakin maybe just to provide some updates on what our reserve amounts look like, what DC accounts look like, perhaps what I'll call it debt payment looks like, just to provide some updates to the board in regards to that.
Thank you. So let me start with reserves and DCs. So currently, back when we did our last DC, which would have been, actually it was the first DC that we did when I came here. So we originally set aside about $1 million was the tag that we had on that project. It's now sort of ballooned beyond close to around $9 million to do the project. So on the next DC study, we will obviously update those numbers so that we can collect a little more. But currently, right now, we have about 500,000 sitting in that DC that would be available for use. We also have a reserve that we've been building up for a bit to try and augment some payments towards this building. It's currently sitting at 1.1 million. There are some costs that have come out of that for the current work that's being done, so that might be closer to the 1 million mark, but we'll be hovering around probably about the 1 million mark when we go to launch the project, hopefully. So on the DC, on the sort of the sides of reserves and DCs, we have in the neighborhood of about 1.5 million sitting that's available. I did, just prior to coming up to the meeting, take a look at Infrastructure Ontario. So Infrastructure Ontario, for those that are unaware, is a lending institution by the province that allows organizations like ourselves and not-for-profits get in on lending rates that are very favorable. And so I think one of the keys here is that it allows us to lock in an interest rate. So they range anywhere from 5 years to 30 years. So if you lock in a rate on the 30-year rate, you have that for the 30 years. So which is really interesting when interest rates fluctuate. We're at a bit of a downturn right now, so those numbers are probably, I would say, at a lower rate than if interest rates were to start to climb. So I think that's a huge advantage for the organization to look at. The other key point here is that they do what's called construction loans, and I think this is something that will be beneficial for not only the municipality when it's moving forward on this project, but any of our major projects. So it allows you to sort of just pay interest on the money you're borrowing until you actually have finished, and then what you do is you basically convert your borrowing into a debenture. So the nice thing is that's hovering around the 3% mark right now, that we could borrow to do this, so we don't have to sort of extinguish all of our reserves. So from an Infrastructure Ontario standpoint, looking at the opportunity to sort of, and I use the 9 million that we've sort of been talking about, the payments, once it got converted to a debenture, would just be around about just over $500,000 annually is what those would be, and so they would be built into the budget. And the nice thing there, again, is with Infrastructure Ontario, you have the ability to lock in what's called an amortized rate, so you just pay that same amount every year. So your payments aren't gonna change. You know what your payments are gonna be for the next 30 years. What they do on their side is fluctuate between the principal and the interest. So I think there's a lot of things that are coming to align here with this project. The other being, I guess, and I've been saying this at the council level as well, we're kind of at a perfect storm. We've got a lot of infrastructure that needs to be updated, renewed, replaced, whatever you want to call it. So everyone's kind of jockeying for our debt capacity to try and figure out how we're going to do this, because obviously there's not an endless well of money that we can keep dipping into. So we need to be wise in how we do that. So I think it's important that this project get into the system as quickly as possible as well on that piece. And then obviously, as finance staff, one of the things that we are constantly looking for is grants as well. So I would prefer to paint the worst picture of, you know, having to sort of go it alone, but obviously in the same time, we're looking for grants that can offset and bring that number down as well. So happy to answer any questions if anyone has any, but that's kind of where things are at.
Thank you. Before we get into the discussions that I just, I'm going to transfer the chair over to Vice Chair Brennan just for this budget discussion if he is okay with that.
Okay, and I might transfer it back to you when I have a question.
Certainly.
Okay, but I will, so at this point, I am the chair?
You are the chair.
Okay, we don't need to take a vote on that, that's
No.
just something, okay.
Thank you.
So I am now the chair, even though I'm sitting over here. And so are there any questions at this point? Member Rowe.
Yeah, Bill, so you're suggesting that there's economies of scale here, essentially, and on the grant issue, what sorts of opportunities do you see out there? What levels of government might participate in something like this?
So one right off the top of my head would be the FCM, so Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So that's funded through an organization that we belong to. They have a green municipal fund. So one of the things that we would want to do is make sure we build in as much energy saving, those kinds of things. The nice and the not so nice piece with that is typically when FCM does their grant funding, they tie a certain amount of loan to that as well. So that they're sort of making some money as well. So that would be one of the things that we'd have to sort of balance off, is just to make sure that, and that would replace, obviously, if we're borrowing from Infrastructure Ontario, we would just borrow that chunk of change from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So I think that's a big one that's out there right now. There's a lot to do with sustainability, green energy, all of those kinds of things, as well as emergency services is high on a lot of radars right now. So I think just sort of combing the weeds to try and find where we can find those funds.
Just to sort of top up on that, the province through a grant process does make some funding available for victim services, CCTV type programs. You know, we would have to maybe be a little creative. Part of our building currently, we provide space to other social service agencies, parole as one example, and victim services are some agencies that, with the right partnership, we might be eligible for some funding dollars that we could perhaps earmark for a building expansion.
Thanks. Here's the mayor.
Yeah. Thank you. Vice Chair, I'm actually sitting here shaking, knowing which hat I should put on to comment about the budget process. So under the new strong mayor powers, the mayor has a lot of responsibility on the budget. So my question is, when do we anticipate to have the budget in front of the police board for approval?
Well, I was hoping that the summary piece would be the information that would help the board sort of move towards accepting and moving the budget forward at this time, despite there not being the detailed format of the budget. I think we're up against a bit of a wall here, just with the current state of negotiations about outlining the details of certain compensation packages that may or may not be approved through a negotiation process. So there is, as I say, a sort of a summary of where we anticipate those costs, those operating and capital costs to be. In relation to the building annex, we're looking for the detailed Class A by, as I said, either November or the December at the latest.
And just as a follow-up, Vice Chair, just a matter of form, the funding of anything, really, other than it's nice, that's a municipal function, correct? So the police board's role is just yes or no, does it fit within the budget, let the municipality, okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Member Hall.
Yes, I know it is tough to kind of push that budget through when you don't have on paper right in front of you, but because of the ongoing negotiations, it's kind of tough to get set numbers until we actually approve the financial aspect and finish that negotiations. But what I'm willing to do today, I would want to put excuse me, a motion forward, just to, seeing as the budget committee discussions are coming up, to approve the budget as the chief has updated it right now, in hopes of moving it forward, with the intent that we would get the line by line after the association negotiations are complete. That would be my motion.
Okay, that would require a seconder for discussion. Okay, seconded by Member Rowe, and the floor is open for discussion and questions. Mayor?
Yeah, and Vice Chair, this is strictly with my police board hat on. I think just given our governance role, I have a hard time approving a budget without seeing it. I mean, it is a substantial increase. I think you indicated 8% increase. I did note that some police boards are doing 11, but there must be a way to release the budget. And I understand the sensitivities regarding ongoing negotiations. But I don't know if you redact it or you do what you need to do, but our fiduciary responsibility and governance role is to look at the budget overall, line by line, so not seeing it and just, again, it's a leap of faith, which I don't mind taking. I just have a hard time approving such a substantial amount of money without seeing the budget in front of me.
Yeah, so I understand the sensitivities of the issue for sure. Is it detailed to the, I haven't seen the budget obviously, or a previous budget, so I'm new to the board. So I'm not sure how it's structured, but generally speaking, there's a line item that sort of aggregates compensation and so forth into a certain package or a silo that would certainly sort of protect the individual negotiations. I would think it would just be a line item that would, you know, look at it as a bulk amount subject to minor change.
Yeah, so through the chair to Member Rowe, the detailed budget is, I would say, very detailed. It has a 5-year comparison for every budget line, and it's broken into general policing expenses, board expenses, police administration expenses, uniform expenses, civilian expenses. As I say, the lines are very detailed. It gives percentage increase year over year, showing that. So, you know, the areas obviously that are somewhat embargoed, I think, at this point is just the compensation lines. Again, not to, you know, handcuff or restrict the bargaining team in regards to the current collective bargaining sort of pieces. So again, appreciating it, and this is it's sort of a delicate walk here, right? About you know, under normal circumstances, you would get every single detail about the budget and have all of those you know, answers to those questions that would be most pressing. To me, again, it's just about trying to sort of give this sort of, here's what the projected number looks like. But again, it's based on where we, I guess, anticipate discussions at the collective bargaining table to go.
I'm wondering, as chair, would we have a more fulsome discussion of this to satisfy the mayor's questions if we went into camera? Because it sounds like the issue is whether or not we wish to discuss in open session negotiations, and we don't want to throw that process into chaos. So I'm just the chair here, but
No, I agree, Vice Chair, that's where my head was going, that this should be maybe a closed session.
well, we can get more
Get
information,
more
and
information,
then come out of in
and then come
camera.
out at the next meeting, right? I mean, there's no hurry. I have certain things I can do as the mayor, but I just think twofold. I would have difficulty as a board member going to council and saying, you know, I approved the budget, but I didn't see it, because I know council may look at us rather, because I do know we have this with lots of labor negotiations, we're able to work things in, so I'm willing to defer the matter, because I think police board, police service is a large piece of the budget, and I think we need to do our due diligence and look at it, whether it's enclosed or whatever.
Yes, also as chair, I'll point out another option, which would be to do it in two steps, one capital and one operating. And I just put that out for discussion as well as chair. Mayor?
So I think I've learned the procedure. There is a motion on the floor, but
Yes.
and I'd like to make I think I can make a motion to defer.
I think you can, yes.
I'd like to make a motion to defer this to the next meeting where it can be discussed in camera, or a special meeting at the call of the chair, but I think we all need to see the budget. So that's my motion to defer.
You would require a seconder for that.
Just informed budget discussions can't be in camera.
Oh, no, nothing
Are we
can.
talking just
The
negotiations?
negotiations,
negotiations,
yeah, it's the negotiation piece that I think we're looking at here. But I'll go back to the mayor, because he's the one who made the motion. Is it negotiations that you're talking about? And we have Ron Claire, you have to speak about.
So if you had, you can have a budget workshop, which would be in camera, which would allow you to discuss matters which would be privileged under section 44 of the act. And then you would then have an open session to approve your budget.
Okay, thank you for that.
So then I'll amend my motion to defer it to an in-camera budget workshop.
Okay, that would still require a seconder.
Yes.
And seeing no seconder,
You might have one here.
do we have a second? Oh, we have a second. Oh, Peter Rowe, you have a seconder? I didn't see it. Okay, we have a seconder. Okay. And any discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor of the motion? It passes. Okay, thank you. At which point do I return the chair to Member Hall?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I did have one question.
Sure.
Now that we're back to you, and that was for the Director of Finance. With regard to the build, the idea that there might be a locked-in amortized payment of $500K per year from Infrastructure Ontario at 3%, is that based on a 7.5 million, which would be the 9 million minus the 1.5? What was that based on?
The, first of all, so it's built on $9 million principal amount,
On the
so
9 million,
everything.
okay.
And then the interest rate that I was using was the one that was posted today, which is 4.68. So the 3% that I was talking about was the construction loan. So what would happen is while you're constructing, you're just paying interest on whatever you borrow, and then they convert it. So
Thank you.
that's based at 9 million, 4.68.
Thank you.
Bert, okay, moving on to number 10, announcements and inquiries by members. We'll start to the left with Member Grantham.
Be silent.
Member Brennan.
Nothing today, thank you.
Member Rowe. With nothing, and nothing for myself. So move on to, in camera, just a vote to move into closed session, discuss the following. One item in accordance with municipalities procedure bylaw to approve meeting minutes. And one item pursuant to section 44 sub 2D of the CSPA is amended regarding labor relations or employee negotiations. We have a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by member Grantham, seconded by member Brennan. All in favor? Okay, we will go in camera. Okay, we are back from closed session. The board went into closed session to approve one item in accordance with municipalities procedure bylaw and one item pursuant to section 44(2)D of the CSPA regarding labor relations and employee negotiations. There's a recommendation here, direction in closed session be approved. Do we have a mover and a seconder? Sort of moved by member Brennan, second by member Grantham, all in favor? Perfect. Next up, schedule the meetings. Next meeting's Tuesday, November 18th at 10:30. Time change from our normal 10 o'clock, so just be aware of that. And then December 16th and January 20th at the same time.
It should be 10.
It should be 10 o'clock? Okay, so correct that. It is 10 o'clock, the normal time for those 3 days. And then we will have a vote to adjourn. We have a mover and a seconder to adjourn for the day. Moved by member Grantham, seconded by member Rowe. All in favor? Or hey, 11:51. Everybody.